David Ward. I teach alternative education in the elementary, grades 2 through 5. I was in the Army, Arkansas National Guard. I joined when I was 17 years old, so I guess that would have been 1987, and so I served 6 years active duty and then 2 years in active reserve. It was 875th Engineering Battalion in Jonesboro, and I was a combat engineer while I was there. Of course, when I went in, I was a private, and I ended up, when I left, I was a sergeant. E5, yes. We were in peacetime, so I really wasn't. The only thing, I was selected to go to officer training, but I was doing my student teaching at the same time, and I opted out to not do that. I guess my 3rd year that I was in our company, I was recognized as Soldier of the Year, though, and I thought that was a pretty neat ordeal. I was only like 18 at the time. I actually became sergeant when I was 19, which was the youngest in our unit, so that was a real challenge. I did do 3 weeks in Honduras. We had our summer camp in Honduras and built a school while we were there. That was the only thing that I did. When I was ready, my time was up, that was about the time that Desert Storm started, and I was put on reserve for that for a couple of years, but I never was called myself, thankfully. I wanted to go to college, and the military offered me a way to do that without being in a huge amount of debt. So I went strictly to be able to help pay for my college, and at the same time, I've always felt, I need to serve. So it was a win-win situation. I was a combat engineer, so we learned how to build bridges and blow them up, which was kind of ironic. But at the same time, that was the time that there was the scare of the New Madrid fault, that everybody was expecting an earthquake. We did a lot of trainings on how to evacuate schools, how to evacuate communities, and be a resource for that. I was actually all in the field, learning how to set minefields, use C4, blow things up. It was more the destruction side than it was. I was just at the time where we were transitioning even from Jeeps to Humvees, and so the technology, it was nowhere near what it is now. Just playing the role that you would go for an entire month and be just a civilian, and then all of a sudden it's like you had to flip a switch and be a soldier, and to shift those mindsets back and forth was always a challenge for me. I think that our time in Honduras was really important. At that time, I was teaching history and teaching geography, and I grew up what I thought was poor, and I had never seen poverty until you get into Central America, and the way that people live and the way that people struggle and the work ethic. That was a really growth experience for me. Well, like I say, it did help pay for my college. That was the big thing. A lot of the things that I learned in the military have been useful, not necessarily skills of blowing things up, but it was when I first realized that in the world, really, there are people that have a servant's heart, and then there are people that are hungry for power. And the military was the perfect example of that, and that's something I've applied to, all through my life now since the military, that if you can surround yourself with the people with the servant's heart, life is so much better. If I was going to do it over again, I think that I would definitely go into a field that the training that I received in the military would have a civilian counterpart, so that I would have a step up. There's not a whole lot of need for people blowing things up in civilian life, so that didn't carry over. So if I would learn a skill that would be useful in civilian life if I was interested in the military. I think it goes back to the question I talked about earlier. The big thing is being able to identify and understand the people who have that servant's heart, who are willing to help and be part of the solution. Always seek those people out, and they're the difference makers. We did a combat training years ago when we went to Fort Chaffee, and I was on a recon team that was supposed to be simulating doing an ambush. They turned us out, and we just had a map and a compass to find our way 3 miles through the woods. It's supposed to be 3 miles, but the driver put us in the wrong spot. So we spent about 14 miles, and what should have been an hour hike was about a 6-hour hike through in the darkness to do that. It wasn't funny at the time, but looking back, it was kind of funny. So. Well, where we were at was actually right in the middle of the rainforest, and so it was extremely mountainous up and down, and so right there on a little creek, there was a community that probably had 15 residents in it, and we built a small school where they could have a central place to get out of the weather and have an education. I don't know. I think that it goes back to wanting to understand the reason behind everything that you did. When I was in the military, there was a joke. Everything was hurry up and wait. And there was a lot of things that I felt that we did during training while we were doing it that I was thinking there's no practical reason that we're having to do this. And then years later, I'm looking back and I say, okay, this was teaching me this skill and this skill and this skill. And in my classroom, I think that I've taken that in and say, when I teach a lesson, I want the kids to understand I'm teaching you this concept so that I can get you to this concept. And that's probably helped me a great deal. Depends on the day. Everything that you go to do, it's all about the mindset you have going into it, how you want to approach it, and the attitude that you approach it with. So even the most difficult task can be good if we approach it the right way and if we're looking at the end product. I think it's a respect issue. I have a friend, and I wish I was better at this myself, but I have a friend that every time he goes into a restaurant, if he sees a veteran wearing, especially like the World War II Vietnam veteran hats, things like that, he automatically just goes and buys their meal. I think that we should do more things to show respect. I think that our kids need to have the mindset going forward, because they're going to be the leaders, that our veterans, there are so many issues that need to be addressed that aren't addressed. The VA is not where it needs to be. I wish that there was, we should have a better healthcare system for our veterans, especially active duty that have served overseas. We need better resources for that, and it's going to be the young people that decide that in the future, and I would like to see that change.